Gear up, because this is the Fuel Your Marketing podcast, designed to accelerate sales and grow your business. Let's welcome your host, Arti Sharma.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Fuel Your Marketing podcast, where we unpack the strategies, the systems, and stories that drive growth and innovation. So I'm your host, Arti Sharma, and today I have with me a fantastic guest, and we're diving into the world of industrial automation. So a segment that we have not talked about in a while, but a sector where the buying journey is so long, the decisions are complicated, and marketing has to do some really serious heavy lifting. And I thought Esther would be a great fit to talk about all of that. So joining me today is Esther Hall, the head of marketing in North America at Stäubli Fluid Connectors, which is a global leader. But I will welcome Esther. And Esther, thank you for joining us. For our listeners, tell us who you are and, what is Stäubli all about?
Yes. Arti, thank you so much for having me. It is a joy to be here. It is a joy to talk with you and have some time and share some stories. So I am Esther Hall. I'm head of marketing for North America in the Fluid Connectors division here at Stäubli. And Stäubli, for those of you guys who don't know, it's a global industrial and mechatronics solutions provider. We're headquartered in Switzerland, and we were founded in 1892. So we are an oldie but a goodie, and we've got 4 dedicated divisions. So we've got the textile division, which actually launched the company way back in the 1800s, robotics, electrical connections, and then fluid connections, which is me. So between the full portfolio, we touch almost every industrial solution out there. It's really wild and interesting. Yeah.
It is definitely a very diverse and intensive longevity and legacy that you guys have built. So that's awesome. And again, welcome to Fuel Your Marketing, Esther. In terms of your operations, you and I have spoken a little bit, but how does the company position itself within the broader industrial automation market? Do you want to share something around that?
So yes, we tailor our brand and go-to-market strategy around custom curated solutions in the automation world. So we've got our robotics division, which is heavy into finding absolute precision solutions. And then we've got, from my side, we work with the robotics team and as well as all other robotics divisions as well with the robotic tooling. And so, which is the end of arm tooling connectors. So there's a lot of universality and agnosticism between a lot of our divisions. So we can play together, but we also play independently with the parts and productions, with other application solutions in the industrial production.
And you know what? There's too many different moving parts, no pun intended here. But at the same time, we both know that industrial sectors are no walk in the park. And when it comes to short conversions and sales cycles are long, decision makers are quite a few. I think the buying committee is large, right? So how do you tailor your marketing efforts to support that complexity, especially when patience and persistence are key?
Yes. Oh, Arti, this is such a great question. And to your point, and you're absolutely correct, industrial sectors do not move at the TikTok speed, right? In B2B manufacturing, our average sales cycle can be anywhere from like 6 to 18, sometimes longer months, right? Especially in the sectors where we focus, like automotive and semiconductor and medical plastics and IT cooling. The specs are complicated and there's multiple decision makers that are involved, just like you said. And Gartner, who's a popular marketing research publication, most of the B2B buyers say that the purchase process is just very complex and it's very difficult for them. And so for us, it's really about building brand trust over time, and not rushing the sale. And when you understand the customer's journey, right, where they seek information and how we can easily and effectively communicate our value propositions throughout that journey, that's really the key. And especially because we've got a long sales cycle and it's so technical and complex, we anchor our strategy around education. So we create high value content that both technically and emotionally speaks with the industrial pain points. Because the more relevant, ample content that we can provide them, the less legwork that they have to do in their decision-making process. So
Yeah.
That's that's been really like
Basically taking them from their interest stage to taking them into more engagement stage to building your trust through thought leadership. And I think that's the way to go, especially in the world of artificial intelligence where AI overviews are taking over. There's a lot of thought leadership content that's surging. Establishing more and more organizations who can establish themselves, I think, are going to win the game. So obviously, in a very complex sales cycle, what I'm also finding is it's hard to engage and learn the motivations of every buyer,
right.
I think buying committee member, right? So some of those buying committee members could be champions, and some could be a whole lot of, I'll say advocates of your services. But at the same time, the decision maker may not be heavily involved. So how do you kind of navigate the complexities of the different type of content that you have to produce for each member of the buying committee? Are there any tips and tricks that you would give to somebody who's in a very similar industry or in manufacturing per se, where their buying cycle is large, technical specifications are complex, and there's many people involved?
We also embrace account-based marketing, right? And so for this, we do a ton of research and we really, really try to understand our ideal customer profiles and the consumers that we're going after so that we can personalize our content and we we humbly come and approach them with as much understanding as we can around what information they need at the different stages. So are you just, in the exploratory phase, what's the so what versus in the consideration phase, it's a different so what. So how do you maintain the same value proposition, but give them a very clear and concise so what in a very complex technical engineering spec world? And that's the challenge with the additional content, right? It's that, we have to make sure that they feel like they have easy answers to their questions in each stage. And so then it's our job to understand what the questions are and then how we can answer. And then we just try to read the digital body language along the way. So
love the digital body language. Talk to us about, are you referring to the intent signals and the signals that you get? Is that what the digital body language is?
Yeah, exactly. Just see if it's like, what kind of content are we producing that provides engagement? And then, how can we hold their hand to the next stage? And so, and where did we lose them? What didn't work? How can we optimize? Like, how can we take the humble approach and realize, well, not the right message, not the right person, and reformat it.
Yeah. So I think the data always plays a big role. And as digital marketing has evolved over several years, account-based marketing is such a narrow way to focus on a small segment and do it really well and meet their needs. Have you seen any other platforms or tactics that have really surprised you in their effectiveness other than ABM? Are there any other channels that you think are really working well for, not just for you, but in general, you're seeing in manufacturing are really working well?
Back to what you were saying about the thought leadership, right? And so finding your communities, finding your industrial brethren, and then positioning your subject matter experts and helping them, because it's marketing role to put somewhat of a voice into their, and to animate some of our subject matter experts and to animate a lot of our content with a voice that resonates and that's relevant. And so those communities on LinkedIn, partnering with your customers, but the supply chain and industrial manufacturing is quite, the upstream and the downstream. And so if you can partner with not your customers, but the other people that are within the supply chain and your customers to get to the next line, then it's like, oh, we're collaborating in this industrial space to kind of speak in one voice together around solutions or topics that matter.
I think you really hit a nail on a few different motions here. Partnership, community, and making sure there's thought leadership content, I think, and especially in the technical industries, it also has to, as you said, reducing the friction and building that trust that can happen through thought leadership. And I think content marketing plays such a critical role, but it has to be strategic approach to content marketing. It can't be just throw any kind of content. It has to be based on their intent, based on their buyer stage, right? What interests them, what engages them, right? But most importantly, it's also how do you structure it to truly establish thought leadership? As you said, it's upstream and downstream. So using your customer's voice, talk to me a little bit about, feedback loops, B2B listening, how are you kind of leveraging some of that? And how do you gather that customer feedback? And for our listeners, how could they do it and utilize it?
In my opinion, I say that our customer feedback is almost our R&D department. And we use it a lot I'll just give you sort of a case in point. Actually, that's very hot topic right now. We have a new product that's launching this summer, for example, and it's for the medical plastics unit. And our subject matter expert, Tim Boyce, noted that in the medical plastics world, I'm going to get a little technical, so bear with me, but there are multiple connections that are required to fit in a very small space. And so our current product versions and our customers' product versions or our competition's product versions, like none of these were really fitting well. Like they just wouldn't fit with the tool. So Tim worked alongside the medical plastics customers and kind of created this team to define the solution that now has become our new product. And this, product is designed to connect all of the temperature control circuits in a very small space. And so we took the feedback loop of like, this is frustrating and it's just not working and it's not you, it's others too. And then we come in and we're like, well, how can we fix this problem? We have a production line ourselves, we can get some engineering behind it. Probably my favorite case study around this topic of like customer feedback and how to really listen, really learn, probably. And we also, of course, do like, NPS surveys, and we talk to our customers at the trade shows and when we're demoing what's working, what's not, because in this industry, if you're not solving the customer's pain point, you're just adding to it. And so you have to make sure that the conversations you have with them are relevant and that they see action from the conversations.
Yeah, I think there are a few really good golden nuggets there. So solving for the customer should be the primary objective for any organization, because if you put customer at the center of your, if you think like a flywheel that it has to spin and rotate, if you put customer there at the center, I think at the core, everything else flows really well. And I think what you really said it well. You not just have to listen to the customer, but also take action on that feedback. And I think when you start to listen and listen intently, I think you kind of come up on the other side, like what you guys just did, is you listen to the customer feedback and kind of, that input shaped the product development essentially.
Yeah.
Even kind of fill the gap that was not there. So now you've opened a new revenue line per se.
Yeah.
And that gap has been filled. So I think sometimes customer loops, the feedback loop is broken. And I think people do have the NPS survey, but what do they do after the survey is really that matters, right?
Exactly.
It is not just about gaining that NPS score. That score will go down very quickly if you don't listen to what the feedback was. So I think that's great. So now, voice of the customer, case studies, content. Let's talk a little bit more about how do you use this for your product messaging and also engagement or per se, going your go-to-market with the new product that you have. I'm sure I know the answers, but I think just to kind of give a little bit more some of those ideas that marketers can take away from this is how do you use the voice of the customer, do more better positioning or better go-to-market, I'd say strategies or tactics, both.
Yeah. I think it's just, you just have to activate it. And so how do you take the message that was received and kindly delivered, because they do you a favor whenever they communicate and give you feedback, and then how do you take action on it? And then how do you communicate like, hey, you spoke, we listened, and here's the results. And I think that that's also important to make sure that everyone has clarity on, we took action on what you said because your relationship is important, your business is important, and your happiness is important.
Especially when you're a global brand, just like you guys are, you operate under a strong global brand, and that comes with a lot of power and responsibility, and your words matter, right? How do you position and how do you go to market and how do you stay authentic in that process is very important. So how do you balance that global brand consistency with the need to localize, to adapt to the North American audience? How do you do that?
Okay. Operating within a global brand structure is both a privilege and a puzzle, right? Our brand has a phenomenal reputation. It has gifted us with a great brand reputation. It's Swiss precision, it's innovation, it's engineering excellence. However, the North American market is just such a different beast when it comes to marketing versus Europe or China. The key is not choosing between global consistency or local relevancy, but rather finding that sweet spot where we can both coexist. And so we treat the global brand as our North Star, right? So the core messaging stays consistent. It's about safety, quality, performance, but how we act in the US and Mexico, that's where we adapt. So, for example, US industrial buyers respond better, and we know this through the voice of the customer and feedback and all of the data that we have performed around this. But our US customers respond better to ROI driven messaging and fast access digital content, right? The what's in it for me, I want to find it now. We all, as Americans, have the attention span of a goldfish, right? So we just do. But in Mexico, for example, relationship building and that on-site demonstration still carries a lot of weight. I mean, McKinsey, pick one of these, big market research brands that, localized campaigns perform 2 times minimum better than the generic global ones. And because we all expect a little bit of personalization and curation these days. And so understanding how to maintain, the values, but provide different voices, I think is really the key. And, the true secret sauce is having a really great communication line with the global leadership so that we're earning trust and their allyship, because they want to know that we're not just going to smatter the brand willy-nilly however we see fit, but that we do preserve the sanctity of the reputation of 130 years.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so we're not trying to color outside the lines, but rather reshade within them to match the light in the room.
I love it, love it, love it. So obviously, everyone has to speak from the same hymn book. The messaging, the audience, and the narrative has to be very tight, but also authentic. Having said that, looks like that you're adapting to the humans on the other side. As to how do they consume information, how do they build relationships, how do they engage further, right? So while Latin American market could be a little bit more one-to-one relationship oriented, whereas North American is tell me now, tell me what's in it for me, and let me make that decision and leave me alone. So yeah, so I think that brings me to another question we should definitely address is the humanization factor in marketing. And in the world of artificial intelligence, where we're over reliance on technology is happening, where do you see, especially in your segment, where the humanization versus the AI and AI bots, especially with the complex sales cycles, where is AI playing a role, if at all, and how are you adapting to it?
Oh, this is such a great question. So I actually think that AI, is probably going to be the most powerful marketing tool that we have in the future as well. Because from a marketing team standpoint, I think deeply understanding AI, learning it, and being humble enough to learn it, you can create a smarter, not harder workflow, which is so key because most B2B industrial marketers are very, very small teams. We're a very small piece of a bigger picture. And so there's always a bandwidth problem. We never had the budget that we need. And so from an internal perspective, understanding, how can we use the tools that are out there to be better marketers is first of all important. And then to your point about what are the humans doing, I think the next generation, and from a channel and a marketing externally perspective, it's a wild time because ChatGPT and Gemini, for example, there's this they're kind of taking over Google. And so how do we, especially when you've got subject matter experts that are your sales teams, and now you have a new generation that's coming up and they don't think to ask the subject matter expert, they're going straight into ChatGPT to define the solutions to their applications. And so this is putting our entire business model actually in a different scope and in a different light. And so leaning into it even further, this digitally enabled selling with the heavy industries, like AR product demos, right? And configurators are kind of becoming slow must-haves. It's like one of my engineers just joked, like, if I can spec a robot tooling solution on my phone while eating tacos, why not? And
Yeah, why not? Anything
the
is possible.
yeah, he's not wrong. And so the back to like marketing automation and the insistence and the expectation on the humanized personalization aspect. What ABM does kind of well is, you know that person so well in a creepy, we won't even kind of way. But, all of us in our own B2C behaviors, consumer behaviors, are expecting an element of personalization, right? For all of the products and the ads that we want to see, we want it to be curated towards us. And I think that our super technical engineers are requiring that the same way. So almost like a Netflix of engineering specs solution for them.
Wow. Who's building that next is my question.
I mean, I guarantee if somebody's identified it as a gap, it's being built.
I think there already are so few solutions already, and I think we're changing so fast. We're changing at a speed of light as to be an understatement, I would say. But I think to your point, is the Gemini and ChatGPT giving run for its money to Google? Yes, they are. But every information or piece of information that you find on any of these LLMs or ChatGPTs or Gemini's perplexities may not be the most current. So my suggestion is to always do your due diligence. At the same time, it is a power tool. Use it. How do you use it? Is the way to kind of accelerate some of your thinking, maybe brainstorming, or kind of, as you said, workflows could be better for lean teams. And I think that's where the power of technology, with combined with personalized human, I think human force, and how do you service both together and bring them both together closely in the most well-aligned manner will get companies more success. So 100%. And in the mix of all of this, right, there is numbers that we're tackling. As marketers, we're held responsible for ROIs. You said, there's return on marketing that we're holding ourselves accountable to. There's certain KPIs that you have to rely on to measure the effectiveness of your marketing campaigns and marketing programs. So how do you translate those metrics back to the businesses? My question is what KPIs do you really rely on, and how do you translate that back to the meaningful business metrics?
Yeah, it's and such a great question, because gone are the days of, where a like can solve all of your problems, right? We're not selling sneakers. We're not selling makeup. We have to be strategic. And to your point, we have to have data-driven results. So for us, I think my favorite, the new tool in the toy box for us is cost per lead, because right now we're evaluating our effectiveness of digital versus trade shows. And back to what you were saying though about because we're in automation and we're in robotics, and so we're in this world of just like technical computers, and I find encouragement because people are, I feel, even searching more for that human connection and touch point even in this world. And so that is very important within the robotics engineers. And, there's only so much personal relationships with robotics and animation or automation. However, where is the return on investment? Because at the end of the day, if your marketing campaigns are not performing, you're just producing a lot of noise. And so, yeah. So for us, we're really trying to figure out cost per lead, again, with the digital versus events, because I'm actually quite surprised coming out of 2020, the COVID era, that events within the industrial marketing sector are so big these days.
Live events, yeah, 100%. Find out the same trend as well.
Yeah. But they're also incredibly expensive. And so are they generating, and again, this is so hard because we have a long sales cycle. And so a conversation that happens in a trade show, we might not see any results for 18 months or 2 years. And is it ever tracked back to that trade show? So it's really one of our pain points right now. So CPL is kind of our local buzzword, and we're trying to put more definition around it and process around it. And how can we what does this mean from the bottom line? But we also look at like sales cycle velocity. Can our campaigns move deals a little bit faster? Not that we want to rush the sale. Like I said, it's about building that brand trust. However, if we can produce content that is clear and provides a really healthy so what and a what's in it for me, that really encourages that trust and confidence with the buyer and ignites the incentive to buy, and we can shave off 6 months, and for us, that's also gold, right?
Pipeline velocity is a big one for many clients that we work with. And, while pipeline is a big one, but pipeline velocity is another metric. At the end of the day, there's specialized industries. You can only build so much pipeline in a year. And if your annual pipeline goals been met, but there is no revenue impact, then that would be a different problem, right? I want to zoom out a little bit. We all know that there's a variety of different channels that exist. There's a variety of different tactics that we could deploy with this flawed attribution that we are now in the era of, right? It's hard to say which touch point really won the maximum trust to move the deal from MQL to SQL to closed one, or, sales qualified opportunity even in the mix. What are the shifts that you are seeing in terms of behaviors, buyer behavior, new technologies, or even, go-to-market strategies that you're keeping an eye on? Like, what is it that you are learning new? What is it that you have, a sharp focus on and say, we got to try this next thing?
If I'm totally honest and transparent, being the global company that we are, we don't really run fast enough to chase the marketing trends. So instead, we have to slow down and work on our trust building, and in a slow and steady wins the race. But so I'm going to say this, and you can roll your eyes because you're like, that is like so 10 years ago. But I mean, I really do think that video shorts and the content around video shorts and infographics and even like GIFs with movement. And I know that this sounds a little strange, but ours is all about, connections, right? And so if we can shortly with like computer graphic animations define what was previously a 25-page white paper, I think that's quite successful, and it just takes a lot of effort to create, convert. Because again, with the American mindset, it's that what's in it for me, fast, fast, fast. Give me a quick answer to my question now. But it's also can go into the tool bag for the global team and for, the Mexico team as well, because it just provides a variety of content around application and really the what's in it for me and the so what. And so it's about the ownership. It's about, because we have a very, very technical product. And so to the point where, if one of our products doesn't work, it can totally dismantle $1 million machine. And, so there's a lot of cause and consequences, type of content and material goes out as well. So the more you can reframe the what's in it for me and the so what, and piece together and the visuals of the customer's day to day, I think that's where we're trying to go right now.
Wow, you're definitely dissecting the content marketing and taking a very micro content strategy approach while keeping your audience so fully engaged, but giving them what they need at that moment. I think that's a great, smart way to build and move at the pace of your buyer, which is where we talked about customer centricity, right? We want to make sure where the buyer is, how do we serve them, how do we make sure that their questions are answered. So micro content strategies, it may seem like it's being talked about a lot, but I think it still works. So you definitely in the right spot with that. And I think augmenting existing content is great as well. You said 25-page brochure. Nobody has the time, bandwidth, or the energy, because our consumption levels have changed as buyers too over a period of time with all the technology that has been thrown at us, right, over the last decade or so. So I think rehashing some of that content into micro digestible content is great. Keep doing that. I think that's it's hard. It's a tough hill battle. As you said, if you miss the mark on some little tiny detail, it could be a little bit more of a cost. But again, I really appreciate you being so candid with me, Esther, to talk about where you are, where you're headed, and the amazing work that you're doing at Stäubli. And I think you've got it all under control, which is fantastic, because it's not an easy way to build a global brand while keeping an eye on the business metrics and ensuring that your brand identity is still localized to different I would say locations and countries that you're kind of going after. So a huge lift that you're doing on your end. So congratulations on that. Thank you very much for joining us.
Kind words, Arti. Thank you so much. This has been such a joy. I love talking about this. I'm the biggest marketing nerd, and I love sharing nerdy conversations with other marketing nerds. So thank you so much for this opportunity and the time.
Yeah, my pleasure. I have one last question of you. If you were to kind of give a piece of advice to a fellow marketer listening on this call, which is not at all marketing related, which is maybe more mindset related, what would you say?
I would say be curious and be agile.
Be curious and be agile.
Always be agile and keep a humble spirit. Ask a lot of questions. Be prepared that no day is going to be the same. And this is a wild, wild world we're in right now in industrial marketing. And you just don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, which is exciting because you never get bored. But the more that you can approach your mission and your job with curiosity and agility, I think the more successful you will be.
Fantastic. Wow. What gold has just been dropped on this episode for those of you listening. The approach to education, precision, and performance really shows what it means to market with depth. So thank you, Esther, for sharing all of that. And for those listening in, if you want to connect with Esther, find her on LinkedIn and make sure that, you're continue to build high impact strategies in niche B2B sectors. And thank you once again for joining in, and keep fueling your marketing.
Thank you for listening to the Fuel Your Marketing podcast. For more episodes, visit www.fuelyourmarketing.ca.